Alright, what's up guys? Got another idea of what if Luke and Leia were never born. So if you like Star Wars or this type of content, expect more what ifs or fanfics, lore videos, video essays, and reviews about all things Star Wars, but why don't we just dive right on in? So for this to work, I see a couple of routes we could take for this idea. One is that Luke and Leia die when they're born, so technically they are born, but they die as infants. This could work as Padme's broken heart may have been so great that it could have affected her children as well. And that would pretty much lead into the direction of Vader just being more dark and never learning as kids, so he just stays in the dark side. Or the other way I could see this working is that Luke and Leia were never conceived and Padme never got pregnant. I like the second idea more, but as the first one, it kind of goes into a dark direction and pretty much ends up with the Empire winning. But the second idea of Luke and Leia never being conceived has two routes I think it could go. One where Anakin dreams of Padme dying in a random attack and not childbirth, and he tries to save her, but she still dies. He becomes Vader, doesn't learn about his kids since they don't exist, and the Empire still wins. So it basically ends up being the same as the first. But then there's another route that the second idea I think it could go, in that Anakin still has dreams of her death, but she doesn't die since she doesn't give birth, but is still injured from Anakin and weakened from a broken heart. So why don't we just jump on into the actual story? The Chosen One had dreams of his wife dying in a horrific attack. Lava and fire were everywhere, and she was choking. He awoke, and this nightmare continued into the events of Revenge of the Sith. Anakin and Padme had talked about having children, but all that changed when Anakin began having these dreams. He fell to the dark side, becoming Palpatine's apprentice and executing Order 66 and wiping out the Jedi. And now on Mustafar, Anakin looked at Padme, his wife, the woman he loved, the woman he was trying to save. She was the only reason he was doing any of this. He looked into her eyes as he force choked her, but the dark side clouded his thoughts. She had betrayed him. She was with Obi-Wan, and that meant he had to move forward, and there was no turning back. Obi-Wan looked at Anakin as he force-choked Padme and jumped in to stop it. The Chosen One let go of his grip on his wife, and the duel between Anakin and Obi-Wan commenced. It would play out the same, with Obi-Wan gaining the high ground and Anakin becoming arrogant with his power, and getting his legs severed and his body burning. Obi-Wan leaves him there, thinking he died, and grabbed Padme to take her to a medical bay. Palpatine landed on Mustafar, disappointed in his new apprentice, but had the clones take what was left of him and built him the suit we are all familiar with. Anakin looked on as his mask dropped onto his burnt face, and once free from the strains, he asked where Padme was. Palpatine told him, "It seems in your anger, you killed her." Anakin was shocked. He remembered the dreams, the lava, the fire, her choking. It was him. He was the reason his wife was going to die, and he then remembered choking her on Mustafar, covered in lava, surrounded by fire. He killed his wife. He was the reason she was dead. And in that moment, Anakin disappeared, and he truly became Vader. Palpatine was taken to a medical facility where she was resting. Obi-Wan, Yoda, and Bail Organa spoke as to what they should do now. Yoda would go into exile on Dagobah, and Bail Organa would go back to Alderaan and try to help the galaxy as a senator through whatever Palpatine was going to put it through. Obi-Wan, on the other hand, looked at Padme. What would he tell her about Anakin? He realized he could only tell the truth. Obi-Wan told Yoda and Bail that Padme would need to be protected, and he would take it under himself to protect her. Palpatine thought she was dead, and since she was the wife of the fallen Chosen One, it was best to make the new Emperor and the rest of the galaxy think that was the case. The three said their goodbyes, and Bail headed to Alderaan, and Yoda embarked on his journey to Dagobah. Padme awoke, still in pain, but saw Obi-Wan by her side. She asked what happened to Anakin, and Obi-Wan told her everything about their duel and his fate. She couldn't contain her grief, and tears began to well up in her eyes. The man she loved, her husband, had died. She didn't want to accept it, but Obi-Wan told her that they needed to go. Palpatine was in the process of forming the Republic into the First Galactic Empire. A few months would pass, and the two would travel from planet to planet in the Outer Rim, attempting to get further and further from the new Empire. They needed a permanent place to hide, but the two remembered Anakin's home planet of Tatooine, and figured that was the best place, hiding in plain sight on a desert world that was once the homeworld of Anakin. The two arrived in Mos Espa, both wearing hoods to conceal their identities, and they made their way through the city, gathering supplies and earning a little money as well. Padme remembered Anakin's mother and Shmi's husband. The two made their way there and met up with Owen and Beru, and found out that Klieg had died. Padme told them everything, and the two said they were always welcome, but it might be best to not be near each other all the time, but to just live a little further down. So Padme and Obi-Wan, now going by Ben, found a small hut, and over the course of the next 10 years made it their home. Over those 10 years, the two grew closer, feeling their bond over their shared loss of Anakin, but not closer in a romantic relationship, more in an older brother and younger sister relationship. Obi-Wan did everything he could to keep Padme safe, but her tendencies did get the better of the both of them. She was a politician, she was a people person, and so as the Empire's reign spread across the galaxy, she couldn't just stand by and do nothing. Padme wanted to help, but Obi-Wan warned her that if Palpatine discovered them, she would die. and he wasn't going to let that happen. But there were also whispers of a metal monstrosity, a robotic nightmare that annihilated anyone who stood in the Empire's way, and was the right-hand man of the Emperor himself. Obi-Wan and Padme heard whispers of this metal man, but didn't know who he was. But one day, a group of Inquisitors made their way to Tatooine. The Grand Inquisitor and two more, fifth brother and third sister. Obi-Wan and Padme were at a cantina during this time, and the three Inquisitors just so happened to walk in. Kenobi sensed this immediately and lowered his presence and avoided eye contact. The Grand Inquisitor spoke up, saying that they were searching for a certain Jedi. Padme grabbed Obi-Wan's hand, and the Grand Inquisitor noticed this in the man wearing the hood. He side-eyed third sister, and she smiled. This was the one they were looking for. She spoke. "Lord Vader sends his regards." Obi-Wan looked up in shock. That name, Vader. He remembered from the recordings. Anakin was alive. Padme had looked at the shock on his face, and as she heard the name, she didn't want to believe it. But with that name, coupled with that shocked expression on Obi-Wan's face, that means it could only mean one thing. Her husband was alive. The Grand Inquisitor walked towards Obi-Wan and asked if he knew anything of a Jedi. The former temple guard smirked, and before anything bad could happen, Obi-Wan used the Force and knocked the Grand Inquisitor back. He grabbed Padme's hand and the two ran for the door, but the fifth brother blocked the entrance, and Obi-Wan pushed Padme out the open window with the Force. He then ignited his blue lightsaber, catching the Inquisitor off guard and cutting him down. The third sister saw this and her chance to get Obi-Wan Kenobi, the man she was searching for. She ignited her crimson saber and was ready to pounce, but not before the Grand Inquisitor told her to stop. They were not here to kill Kenobi, but to confirm his whereabouts and inform Lord Vader. She gritted her teeth and de-ignited her saber, and Obi-Wan ran off to go find Padme. The two ran from the cantina back to their hut to quickly grab their belongings and say their goodbyes to Owen and Beru. It was only a matter of time until Vader came for them, so they needed to be ready. Over the 10 years, they had found a ship in a scrap heap and rebuilt it, giving them something to do and took their minds off of everything, and they used this ship to jump into hyperspace and headed towards Alderaan. Padme and Obi-Wan landed and met up with Bail Organa after 10 years. They were glad to see each other, but wish they were under better circumstances. Bail filled them in on what the Empire had become in the past 10 years, and just how powerful they were. But Bail looked around and told them it wasn't safe to speak out in the open. He brought them to his personal quarters away from everyone else and continued on. With Palpatine becoming the Emperor and a robotic nightmare known as Darth Vader becoming his deadly enforcer along with the Jedi Hunters known as the Inquisitors, Obi-Wan told Bail that Vader was his former apprentice, Anakin Skywalker. The Senator was in shock. He couldn't believe the hero of the Clone Wars could become such a terrifying machine of chaos. He had thought he had died on Mustafar, but it turns out he was wrong. But Bail told them of the forming rebellion, how he, Mon Mothma, and other like-minded individuals were building up an army to fight back against the Empire. They already had someone on their side, someone they were familiar with, and he told them of someone known as Fulcrum, or Ahsoka Tano. They both smiled happy that she was still alive. Padme spoke up saying that she wanted to help in any way possible. Obi-Wan's side. There was no stopping her. Maybe this was one of the reasons Anakin fell in love with her. However, while all of this was happening, the Inquisitors returned to Vader's personal Star Destroyer. They told him of their discovery of Obi-Wan Kenobi on the planet of Tatooine. Vader was staring into the vacuum of space and only turned his head slightly. He gazed at there only being two, the Grand Inquisitor and third sister. "You are weak. Obi-Wan left you two alive. I will kill him myself." The Dark Lord spoke. The Grand Inquisitor then told him that he wasn't alone and that an unknown woman accompanied him. Vader thought who it could be. Maybe his old apprentice was still alive, or maybe Obi-Wan had taken in a new apprentice. It didn't matter, he'd kill them both. But before Vader could do anything, he made a pit stop to Naboo to visit his wife's grave. He did this for the past 10 years as a reminder of his failure, to make himself suffer for not saving Padme. And he just missed his wife. He walked up to her tomb and put his hand on her grave. "I'm sorry I failed you. I failed to save you. I dreamt of your death, and I was the cause of it. In my rage, I killed you. Even after you betrayed me by taking Obi-Wan's side, I still loved you, and I always will. My beloved wife, I'm sorry, but I must continue on the only path I have left. I must push forward, and I will kill my former master, Obi-Wan Kenobi." And with that, Vader took one last glance and left, ready to finish what he failed to do back on Mustafar, kill his former master. He boarded his Star Destroyer and fell into the Force. He remembered Obi-Wan's presence and searched across the galaxy. He remembered Tatooine, and that fueled his anger, making himself stronger, widening the search radius, and he found it. He found him. Obi-Wan was on Alderaan. Vader ordered for the ship to enter hyperspace towards the planet at once, and he did so. And as Obi-Wan and Padme were speaking with Bail, he felt it. That familiar yet dark and cold presence. Anakin. No, Vader was coming. He told Padme and Bail they were in danger. Vader was coming to Alderaan, and before they knew it, a fleet arrived within the planet's atmosphere in a matter of moments. It was already too late. He was here. Vader boarded his personal TIE fighter and headed towards the ground with a squadron of stormtroopers behind him. He landed at the main residence of Bail Organa and his family, and he made his way inside. Vader came face to face with the senator, and Bail asked if he needed anything. Vader spoke. Where is he? Bail tried to dodge the question to stall for time, but Vader wasn't having any of it, and began to force choke Bail. He asked again, and Bail didn't reply, saying he would rather die. Vader obliged and proceeded to ignite his lightsaber and gut Bail Organa. His body dropped to the floor, and Obi-Wan and Padme watched this in horror. Obi-Wan knew he had to stop his former apprentice. I'm right here, Sith. No need to kill anyone else. Obi-Wan spoke. Vader looked at him in disgust, not saying a word, only igniting his crimson saber once more, with Obi-Wan following in response, igniting his blue saber. Vader told the stormtroopers to stay back, or he would kill them later. This was his fight. Padme sat and looked at Bail's corpse, and then at the fight that was about to begin. Vader launched towards Obi-Wan, who took a defensive stance and blocked. Vader's strength was beyond comprehension. He struggled to block. He felt his bones creak, but Obi-Wan knew he couldn't stop. The two proceeded to clash in a duel that was similar to the one back on Mustafar. Master against apprentice. Jedi against Sith. This was a fight for the fate of the galaxy, but was also a fight between two brothers. Obi-Wan struggled. He had kept up his training, but he had gotten older, while Vader trained and fought every single day. From the time he entered into his suit, his suffering and rage pushed him forward, making him stronger, and he began to gain the upper hand against Obi-Wan. Obi-Wan went for a block, but Vader predicted this and cut off his hand, holding his lightsaber, and he kicked Obi-Wan to the ground. Kenobi flew back, and Vader grabbed him by the throat and force choked him while bringing him closer, until he had his former master by the throat with his robotic hand. That wasn't enough. He used his other hand and proceeded to punch Obi-Wan in the face repeatedly until his former master was nothing more than a bloody pulp. He was still alive, just heavily injured. Vader was about to finish off Obi-Wan before he heard a blaster fire, and his vision was overtaken by a blinding light, and he felt his face on fire. He dropped Obi-Wan and felt half of his mask had been blasted off, and he felt blood dripping down his face. He looked over to see Obi-Wan's female companion holding a blaster. He grabbed her by the throat, using the force, and began choking her to death. But that's when he realized who he was choking. It was his wife. Vader dropped his grip and stepped back in shock, and Padme fell to the ground, coughing and holding her neck for air. Everything was a lie. He didn't kill her, but then he saw Obi-Wan lying on the ground and realized Padme had been with him this whole time. She still betrayed him. But that's when the wall broke down, and Vader looked over and saw his former comrade Rex and his former apprentice Ahsoka staring at him in disbelief. Everyone he used to care about was here. So why was he a Sith? Why did he turn to the dark side? But then he remembered back on Mustafar how Padme betrayed him. They all betrayed him. The Jedi and everyone he cared about. He was too far gone to bring back. Padme looked at Vader. No, Anakin, and begged him to come back. Annie, please come back to us. Come back to me. I'm here. I'm alive. Come back, please. Vader looked at them, and then at Padme, and spoke.
Anakin's gone. I am what remains.
A tear ran down Padme's face, and Rex and Ahsoka looked at each other, saddened. They had found each other again and had joined the rebellion, came here when they heard from Bail about Obi-Wan and Padme. And now here was Darth Vader, the enforcer of the Empire, and he was Anakin Skywalker, Rex's old friend and Ahsoka's master. Rex launched a smoke bomb and quickly grabbed Obi-Wan, while Ahsoka used the Force to bring down the building onto Vader, who stopped it, but it allowed her to grab Padme and all four to escape. They made their way to a secret rebel base where Obi-Wan was healed and given a new hand, and they were all in shock from what they witnessed, and they needed to come up with a plan. They wanted to bring Anakin back, but after hearing that, they thought he might be long gone. But Padme still held out hope that her husband was still in there, somewhere. Vader returned to his ship and back to the Empire and back to Mustafar to his palace, where he healed himself in a Bacta tank. While healing, he thought, why was he part of the Empire? But at the same time, he had thoughts of everyone betraying him. His mind was clouded, and after healing, he meditated, going deep into the Force and pondering his next move. He told Palpatine of everything that had happened, and that his wife was alive. This surprised Palpatine, but he told Vader that he needed to kill every attachment to Anakin, including Skywalker's wife. Vader put his head down and then back up, leaving the transmission. with a "Yes, my master." 9 more years would pass, and Obi-Wan, Padme, Ahsoka, and Rex would help the rebellion against the Empire. The events of Rebels would have unfolded, and Ahsoka would have fought Vader, trying to bring him back to the light, but once again failing. Darth Maul would go to Tatooine, but instead of Obi-Wan, he found Vader, and the two would fight to the death, with Vader coming out on top. All of this fuels his anger, making him stronger, but he was also getting older. The Death Star had been completed, and the rebellion sent Rogue One on a mission to steal the blueprint, and were successful, with Admiral Akbar leading the mission of receiving it. Rogue One would still die, and Vader would board Akbar's ship and would torture him for the information, but the Fishman wouldn't give. He had sent C-3PO and R2-D2 to Padme and Obi-Wan's location. Vader felt into Akbar's mind and saw a ship heading somewhere, and realized the blueprints were on that ship. He killed Akbar and boarded his TIE fighter alone, following the ship. It jumped into hyperspace, and so did he. It traveled to a strange swamp world known as Dagobah. During the last 9 years, Obi-Wan, Padme, Rex, and Ahsoka reunited with Yoda and Dagobah, and from time to time would visit the planet, and it turned into a sort of top-secret rebel base that only a few knew of. Vader saw the ship drop from hyperspace and land on the planet, and he quickly followed. He landed a bit away from it and drew his lightsaber, making his way through the swampy world. He finally made his way to the landed ship and saw no one inside. But that's when he saw tracks and followed them to a small cave. But that's when 5 individuals appeared out of nowhere. Obi-Wan, Ahsoka, Rex, Padme, and Yoda. Vader looked at them as surrounding him. "Master Yoda, it's been a long time. I'm looking forward to gutting you after I finish Obi-Wan and these other ants." "Clouded by the dark side you are, young Skywalker," the old Jedi Grandmaster told him. Vader realized he was outnumbered, but he wouldn't go down without a fight. He had deignited his saber, but reignited it once more to kill them all. Padme and Rex took a step back and pulled out their blasters as the 3 Force users and former Jedi stepped forward, igniting their own sabers. Vader saw Obi-Wan's new hand in his blue saber, Ahsoka's dual-wielding white sabers, and elder Yoda's green saber. He thought what manner would be best to kill them, but before his thinking was finished, Ahsoka leapt forward, striking Vader with both her sabers, with Anakin blocking. He force-choked her and slammed her into Obi-Wan, who caught her as Yoda, although older, was still able to jump around. His speed and agility had slowed, but was still much faster than Vader anticipated. He blocked strikes from the little green monster, and as Yoda jumped back, Rex and Padme unleashed a rain of blaster fire, which Vader caught using the Force, and combined and unleashed it onto Yoda, which caught him by surprise, and as the former Grandmaster tried to block, it was too much, and he was sent flying back. Ahsoka and Obi-Wan regained their composure, and Ahsoka ran forward once more, and Vader blocked her every swing. But that's when Obi-Wan joined the fight, and Ahsoka attacked. Obi-Wan would defend against Vader's attack. They were a perfect duo. But Vader had trained for a day like this, and pulled out another crimson saber, just like his master. The dual-wielding Vader stared down his former master and apprentice, and sprinted towards them. They each blocked one saber, but Vader's raw strength was unimaginable. He cut through Ahsoka's lightsaber and grabbed her by the throat, squeezing, but just as he did, Rex and Padme fired again, and he dropped Ahsoka, but kicked her into the swamp. Vader, while holding back Obi-Wan, took their blasters and pushed them back with the Force, and just like that, it was back to Obi-Wan and Vader. Their third duel, but this time Obi-Wan wasn't alone. Yoda jumped back into the fray, and the 2 light side masters brought the robotic Sith to his knees. Yoda managed to cut off his robotic arm, and Obi-Wan damaged his suit and mask. His face could be seen, just like 9 years prior. Vader's suit was sparking as he stared down Yoda and Obi-Wan. He knew he had lost, but he wouldn't go down without killing one of them. But that's when Ahsoka, Rex, and Padme joined the two, and they all put their weapons down, and Padme said it was okay. She said she was sorry for everything that had happened to him, for her making him think she was dead, for all of it. But for Vader, no, Anakin Skywalker, her husband, to come back to her. Vader's yellow eyes began to turn back to its once normal color, and then back to yellow. He was struggling inside, and in unison, they all yelled, "Come back, Anakin!" Vader's eyes finally went back to normal. No, Anakin's eyes. He dropped to his knees, asking, "What have I done?" Padme walked up and hugged Anakin, saying everything would be okay. Weeks would pass, and everyone would have healed up. Vader would have been given a new suit and would have joined the rebellion and reunited with his wife, although many weren't as forgiving as her. Palpatine felt his apprentice's betrayal and boarded the Death Star, ready to go and kill Vader and his filthy rebellion once and for all. Vader would give everything he knew about the Empire to the rebellion, and this would turn the tide of the war, and the final battle above Yavin 4 would ensue. Everyone with Anakin would do their best against the Empire, and as Palpatine was about to destroy Yavin 4, Anakin, the greatest pilot in the galaxy, launched torpedoes into the weak spot, destroying the Death Star and killing everyone on board, including Palpatine. The war was over, and over the course of the next 5 years, the remnants of the Empire would be crushed, and Vader would face the punishment and imprisonment for his actions, but would go through with it, with his wife by his side. Yoda would die from old age and would leave Obi-Wan as the Grand Master of the Jedi Order, and alongside with Ahsoka over the following decades would rebuild the Jedi Order. And so, the story ends with the galaxy in peace, with the Chosen One having brought balance to the Force, even after turning to the dark side. Alright, so that brings us to the end of this What If. If you liked the video, then be sure to leave a like, comment, and subscribe, and let me know down below what more Star Wars videos you want to see. If you want to see fanfics, what ifs, lore videos, comics, reviews, video essays, or just whatever Star Wars, I'm down to make it all. But also be sure to go check out my other channels, which will all be linked down below. But with that, I will see you all in the next one. Peace.